good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Sprague. I've been involved with IGU since in advising capacity since 2018, and I've been teaching for well over a year. I've been teaching cybersecurity master's courses also since 2014 at some other places. We're going to talk about cybersecurity today, and I'll go over a little bit of that, but I wanted to say, well, what do I know about cybersecurity besides just teaching it? I've got a lot of experience in that area. So I ran the NASA Data and Innovation Division and was the deputy for 6 years for that division, along with being the deputy CTO, the IT CTO, that's Chief Technology Officer, and the deputy Chief Data Officer for a little while. I'm currently on a detail, and that detail is working with a project called AAMNC, that's Advanced Air Mobility National Campaign. And people ask, what does that mean? It means flying cars like air taxis and quadcopter deliveries, like pizza deliveries or Amazon package deliveries, things. So that's the project I'm working on. And I get to work the cybersecurity side of that and the data side. I love it. It's awesome. A lot of fun, a lot of work, a lot of fun. So just kind of related to that, I really got into this job. I volunteered for it and I love it and it's been a lot of fun. But I also went and looked, well, what can I do to get prepared for that job? And me and my son went down and got our FAA drone licenses. So we went out and I made that extra effort to go get ready for this job. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the very end when we're talking about cybersecurity jobs. Click to the next page. There we go. There we go. Wow, I was wondering why it wasn't clicking. So here's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to tell you a couple definitions of what cybersecurity is, from Wiki and from CISA. I'm going to talk about the latest breach examples, why you should care, and I'll just throw out like a quick one right now that I want people to be aware of. Is one reason I'll mention is there are a lot of people working from home right now. A lot of people know that. I'll tell you what happened to me. About over a year and a half ago, I was on the train hearing about COVID on the news a lot. I was on the train going into DC, and there were people coughing everywhere, more than normal. And I was like, wow, this is terrible. So I called my supervisor. Hey, I'm not going to come in tomorrow. I'm going to work from home for a little while. 2 weeks later, we were all sent home. Everybody was sent home. So I was lucky that I had already started it earlier and my boss allowed it. But that's just kind of shows you people are working from home now, and that has its own cybersecurity implications for you and for your work and for your, for your home life too. And then last, I'm going to talk about training and certifications. I've got a couple, and I'm an advocate for them. And in my classes, I like to go over, if people are interested, here's how you can get certifications that are out there. So here's the two definitions I mentioned. The first one's from Wikipedia. It's security that's applied to IT, information technology. And everyone that I know, company or agency, has IT. It needs to be protected. And if you look at the CISA definition, it's the art of protecting those networks and data from unauthorized access, criminal use, and the practice of ensuring CIA, I call it. And in all my classes, I talk about these three letters: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality, if you think about, let's talk about availability. If Amazon has a bunch of bots try to attack it, and it stops you from going and buy something on Amazon, that's the availability part. They could do that through a bot attack, a botnet attack, DDoS, denial of service. And this means that you won't be able to, when you click it, it takes too long to come back, and then it times out, you click it again. What are you going to do? You're going to go buy somewhere else, probably. Amazon or whatever the company is will lose that money because you're going to go buy it somewhere else. And this has happened many, many times to a lot of companies. So that confidentiality, integrity, and availability, if just one of those pieces is gone, the integrity part, I am ordering a certain amount of a product that I need for my business, and somehow somebody gets in there, man, in the middle attack or some other attack, they can then change that order. They can delete it. They could add more, and then my company is liable for buying, 20 of those expensive products that only afford 5. So all that is bad. Confidentiality, I don't want anybody to know what I'm ordering. That's none of their business. What about Privacy Act information? Things that are private to me. HIPAA is another example, and that's health information that is protected. And there's an act out there that helps the people that have problems with that. They're able to use that act to get a resolution to that. So there's all these things. CIA is one part of cybersecurity that I really, I'm harping on it a little bit, but I like people to know that's important. All 3 parts of that. Any part of that is gone, you have a breach, you have a problem, you have something that's not going to work very well. Here's a very interesting fact, and even though this is from a survey in 2020, it was actually put out in May 2021 that this article came out from CNN, and the article is at the bottom if you're interested in looking at it. 879,000 cybersecurity folks across the United States, but there's an unfilled 359,000. And I've been hearing about this for well over a decade, of especially like in the DC area. I know a lot of the folks that are listening are in the DC area, and that for Northern Virginia and Maryland and all that area, there's a ton of jobs. This one's spread across the whole United States, but in the past I've heard 60K in just the DC area alone in cybersecurity. So there's this big need, and I'm so proud and happy to be able to help with teaching some of the courses that give people the skills and that gives them the credentials that they can go get some of those jobs. I'll talk about it in a minute, but there's the jobs and there's the experience. In some cases, you got to have both. We'll talk about that. By the way, it's by the ISC2 organization, which, what is that? That's the International Information System Security Certification Consortium. So it's one of those well-recognized big nonprofits that's out there that care about this stuff. And so when they talk, they don't just make up some numbers. Oh, there's a billion people that, that could be in cybersecurity. No, they give actual numbers based on surveys that they conduct, and it has a lot of credibility. So as I'm going through this, if something hits on somebody and they want to ask a question, please do, but we'll have time at the end for questions too. So here are the latest breach examples. 2021 was just an unbelievable year with all the things going on. And here's the top 10. Number 10 there being the lowest of those 10. You can see by the numbers of people that were affected. And I would almost guarantee that one of you are in one of those, maybe even more. I highlighted Facebook and LinkedIn. A lot of people have that. Some people are like, no, I don't want to have that. That's your web presence. Talk about those two in particular in a minute. But look at the bottom one there, 5 billion records. And so what is it that happened there, that Cognite one? That's a company. And what do they have? They have a lot of data on a lot of other breaches out there, which is very ironic. They have all that data. And they didn't take care of and protect their database. So what was disclosed in just that one, which was a really big one, names, passwords, email addresses, they made it to check on breaches. That's what they made this database for, to be able to say, here's all this information on people, go check and see if it was leaked. And they didn't secure their own database. Now, they're still a good company out there. They do great work, but this is like what happens to some other companies and you see the list here of just some, there's a breach. It hurts the company, obviously, and in some cases they go under. It's so bad, and so you got to be very careful with all this. While I'm on this subject of breaches, I want to mention ransomware. Ransomware is one that is just making lots of money for the people that are the criminals that are doing this, and it's big business. So I've been telling people in my classes, ransomware will never go away because it just makes money for some people, and it's terrible. But are you ready at home and at work? So let's start at home. Are you ready at home for ransomware? What can you do to be prepared? I'll just mention one thing you can do is make sure you have a backup. When is the last time you did a backup for like even your schoolwork? So, your personal finances and all that. Everything that's on your laptop or your computer, was it a week ago? Was it a month ago? Have you never backed it up? Because if you get a ransomware attack, you either have to pay for them to unencrypt your hard drive, they'll give you the password, and in general, they usually do it because the minute they stop doing that, then people will know, don't pay it. They're not going to unencrypt it anyways. So the ransomware, I really tell people, try to back up your system personally, at least weekly. That way, you only lose a week's worth of whatever it is you were working on. Maybe daily if you can. There's also, besides just having a little stick that you back it up on manually, you can do it on the cloud too. I know people that do that, and that's a great way. Everything you're making changes to gets backed up on the cloud. One of the three main clouds that are out there, or other ones, because there's a bunch. So that's what I highly recommend. And what about at work? Think about that. If your work gets a ransomware attack, what else can happen? Well, they're going to be in the news, and it's going to hurt their reputation. It's going to cost them a lot of money to fix it, even if they pay it and get the password. And I'll use one example of this at work. So we all hopefully have heard about Colonial Pipeline. They were in the news. They had a Russian-linked group called the Dark Side that were paid by them, Colonial Pipeline, $4.4 million. Give them the password so they could unencrypt all the stuff that had been encrypted, all their computers. Well, it took a while for Colonial Pipeline to go through, then talk to their board and get approval and then find the money and pay it. In all that time, it took days and days. While that was going on, they were in the background trying to fix their computers. They were reloading them and putting backup data back on them. Remember I mentioned that earlier, backup. They were putting that on. And by the time they got all that done, they got the password, they had already fixed all their stuff. All their computers were back up and running. So here's the bad part. They were in the news, which is, hurts their company. They paid the money. They paid it and didn't even get the benefit of that to unlock everything. So that's good. That's all bad. The only good part was, luckily, the FBI had some contacts, and I've read about this in the news, how they did it. It was amazing. But they got lucky, I think. Everybody got lucky. And they got some of that money back. They didn't get it all back, 4.4 million. They got a significant amount back. So, that's the good part of the story, I guess. Remember, how did it affect us? People in the Northeast, there were gas shortages, if you remember. Yeah, some of that was people getting scared and they run down, fill their tank when they don't need to, and there's gas shortage. But it caused major problems for the Northeast of the United States, especially hard hit was Virginia, where a lot of the folks here online are in or living at. So, anyways, just do one thing: make sure you back up your stuff at home and your stuff at work. And if you don't know what your backup policy is at work, ask somebody. It shouldn't be a secret. How often do they back it up? They need to back it up frequently. There's all kinds of different philosophies on that: daily, hourly, or weekly, or monthly. The more, the better, I say. Memory's cheap, so backing it up, even if you do it yourself, you can go buy a little stick and you stick it in your computer, a USB stick. It's cheap. You can get lots of gigs for under $20 now. Just thought I'd mention that part because I really would hate for any, and all of us are gonna, some of us are gonna get hit by this ransomware because it's happening all the time. We'll accidentally click something and boom, got it. So take care. Why you should care. So, do you have a web presence? Well, probably. Even if you avoid Facebook and LinkedIn and some of the other big ones out there, you probably have it anyways in all kinds of other ways. Look at tax records. You got to pay taxes. You have financial accounts out there with banks, and those get hacked. Those have information. People can see and get that information. If you live somewhere, more than likely they have your address and maybe your phone number and your name associated with it, and people can look you up. It's funny. A while back, we were having a high school reunion, and they knew I worked in IT, and some of the people that were putting together said, "Hey, John, can you help us? We have these 10 people we can't find, and we don't know where they're at." And I said, "Okay, well, let me look." And sure enough, I looked hard online, and I found 8. So I didn't get them all, but I got most of them. It was a small graduating class anyway. And that was great finding those people. Then they could get invited. But anyways, like I said, it's not hard to find people online. You got to be very careful. So we all need to protect that data. And there's all kinds of reasons for that, but it's all about the data. Why do we put these very expensive systems out there and even launch systems out into the sky and into the universe? It's for the data. It's not because it's a beautiful, shiny product that costs a lot of money. It's for the data that comes back. All about the data. And I say that a lot. Oh, by the way, at work, if you're not taking care of the data, protecting it, like I just said right here, what can happen to you? Number one, if you're in a company, you can get sued and or fired. You didn't protect this data. You embarrassed the company. You cost us lots of money. You're fired. Get out of here. And that might follow you. The next place that hired you might call back and go, "Well, what was going on?" And there's legal things that they can't say everything, but they can say they let you go. And then you're going to explain that to your new employer. So be careful. Protect the data at work and at home. So one of the areas I love to talk about, and some of you have already seen some of my other talk about technologies in the future and the new services that are always coming. Who would have thought you'd have a phone in your pocket that has more power than the original Apollo and some moon launch and some of the other things from just even 20 years ago. It's amazing the power that's in your pocket, and it's only getting increased. It's only going to be more. Artificial intelligence is a very good example. I would say it's exploding everywhere now. Everybody's looking at it. And it can do amazing things. It can do bad things too, but it can do amazing things. Movies always point out the bad things, and I love watching those movies. Don't get me wrong. So I've written a couple AI papers. They're easy to look up. You just type my name and type that, and you can find them, or let me know, and I can send you a link. I created a brief on AI that's been briefed around to and seen by a lot of people in the United States and the European Union. I actually was able to brief them. That's scary technology when you think about cybersecurity, because it can do so much, and then it can change, and it can learn, and machine learning is another example. When that's applied to bad things like cybersecurity hacking, that who knows what's going to happen next. You know, I read the paper or online at least every day, and it's funny, it's sad that these new technologies are getting taken advantage of. You know, when you buy that new security camera, did you change the password? Or can that now be turned into a bot that's used by some other puppet master somewhere that's going to now attack other sites? And you don't even know. There's a lot of people out there, some of you probably online here with me now, that don't know that there's a bot already on your computer. Antivirus didn't find it, and you know, when they want, they can then turn that on and go attack other places. And you don't want to be a part of that, but you don't know, so you got to find out. You got to get smarter on all this. That's just something I would say to everybody. And how do you get smarter on it? About training and certs. So formal education's out there. That's been the established path for a very, very long time, and it's well respected. You get your associates, your bachelors, and they can be in almost anything. It can be in cybersecurity. You get your masters, and you can even get your doctorate. You'll be even more educated. You can be in all kinds of different areas. It's funny, a lot of the cybersecurity people I know have different degrees. It wasn't strictly in cybersecurity to begin with. They might have gotten their master's in it later, but their bachelor's is in art or history or in industrial engineering, like me. It's in something different. But then they migrated to that. Anybody can learn cybersecurity. Here's just 3 of the courses I teach, just to show them to you. Security assessment and testing. That's, you know, I want to do an audit, or somebody needs an audit done on their systems at their company or their agency. And this is a good way of best practices on how to do it. And I've been teaching this one for well over a year. Love teaching it. Same thing with 603, ITSM 603 at IGU, Network and Information Security. Another one I love teaching. I ran a very, very large network, 4 classifications a while back. And I worked with network engineers every day. There were hundreds of people. All they did is network. And so when I go through this book, I'm like, boy, we did that. We did that. We did the metrics. We did all the little parts and pieces of the network, tools used on the network. And then lastly there is CS 681. That's the cybersecurity capstone course that I'm teaching right now. 2 more weeks to go and that course is over. And another one starts. That's the last cybersecurity course you take before you graduate. Cybersecurity masters. That's the capstone. You do a paper at the end, and it's a really cool paper that you work on with other people. It's a really great way to finish your cybersecurity master. And then I teach some other courses at some other places. Use and protect your space assets is what I teach. I just love that type of material and at the university level. So certifications, there's a bunch out there. There's way more than my little list here, but I do have some of the bigger ones and the hotter ones. So, and it's very well known, the Cybersecurity Information System Security Professional, the ISSP, is the first one on here. That is a very hard test. You have to have experience that you can turn in with a package to even go test some of the stuff that's involved in it. And I always mention this one in Security Plus in all my classes so that people are aware. But Security Plus, I have that one. I went and I'm studying the CISSP. But Security Plus, how did I do it? I did that self-study that's at the bottom there. Went and bought the book, studied it for a few months, made sure I was really familiar with all the subjects, and then went to a CompTIA site. There's several around Virginia and DC. They're everywhere, actually. And I registered and went and got passed and got my security. CISSP, like I mentioned, you have to turn a bunch of stuff in, then you get approved by them. By the way, they want references. There's all kinds of stuff in that package. That test is a over $500 test. So you study hard. The pass rate varies from 50 to 70% pass rate, which means 40% of the people didn't pass. You studied, you paid your $500 plus, and you didn't pass. Terrible. And then you have to go study again and take it again. So it's a very serious business. And for me, that'd be self-study too. It's another book. You go find out all the different parts and pieces. And sometimes there's even sample generic questions you can look at. Ooh, I'm weak in the area. I need to go study more on it. Certified Ethical Hacker, CEH, a very hot one out there. So people get the book on that. And that one's a little more detailed too. So if you're ever interested in these, just look them up. There's one called the GIAC, Security Essentials, GSEC. And one of my friends has that one. And it's a well-respected one too that's out there. Certified Cloud Security Professional, another hot one. And I've seen in job applications where people are looking for these kinds in some cases. I know a top security person who doesn't have any of these certs, by the way. So I'm not saying, oh, you got to have a cert. No, I'm not saying that. You don't have to. You can make it to the top and be, the top security person and not have this. I know a guy that's done that. But it doesn't hurt, and it helps if you have the time. Some of these courses help you to understand more to get ready for that also. So self-study, buy the book, take the test. Look at the jobs that you're interested in. I'm not doing this job right now, but I'm really interested in that job. Look at those jobs. It's easy to sign up for one of these sites that is free, and it allows you to see the jobs that are available. Government jobs, you go to usajobs.gov, and you can then look. Now they'll tell you all the requirements. You gotta have this, gotta have that. Some of them will say you have to have one of these first. You have to have a bachelor's degree. You have to have a master's degree. Some of them it's recommended. So that if you don't have that, you don't have that master's in some form of study, then you might not be able to get that job. You might still get it because you've got great other references and experience and all that, and you'd be able to get the job. In general, if they're saying they want that, then more than likely they're like me. I want them to have a master's, and that's my requirement. I'll say it's not required in the actual job, but I say it's recommended. Well, which ones would I look at first? Grab all the ones that have masters. I'm going to look through those first. Find one, yeah, I'll go down to ones that don't have it. More likely, I'm going to find the person, that first group that I look at. I might look at 100 resumes and applications, but I'll whittle that down to only 3 to 7 people that I actually interview. If it's a really big position, it'll be 7 interviews. People interview. So I'm just throwing out some information, from me that I've seen and know. But take a look at the job you want. What are they asking for? How can you get that? You get the formal education. You might get experience. So getting that experience is super important too, wherever you can get it. To me, it doesn't matter in so much the job, but if it has that criteria in it. You're doing cybersecurity as an example in other areas. That's a great one. So finally, it's completely in your hands. Lifelong learning is what I'm talking about here at the end. And for me, I learned. I was in the Air Force. I worked at the FBI as a contractor. Homeland Security as a contractor, and now I work at NASA and teaching. You know, I did all these things to get there. So I'd love to hear any questions anybody has.
Professor, I have one question. From our understanding is that most cybersecurity jobs are for, you have to have security clearances and you have to have a citizenship. What about international students? Do you think that they can get into private sector where they can, what would you advise them, students with F1 status?
So not all jobs require that. If it's a government job, more than likely, yes, you're going to be required to have be a U.S. citizen or a resident. And you know, I know some people are moving towards that. Once you get that, then that opens up more jobs, at least government. But there's small, medium, and even large companies out there that have these kind of requirements, and they don't require you to have a U.S. citizenship in particular. So there's things that you can do with that status, and those are the ones that I would highly encourage people to go look for. Look online. There's all kinds of online ones that will show jobs, and then you look for the ones that don't say already have to have a clearance or that that it's not required to be a U.S. citizen. Then that's a job that you could look at, and if it's got the right kind of things you want to do, that's the job to apply for. You want to try to beef up your resume as much as possible, because you turn in one that says, you know, I'm working on this degree and that's it. Well, compare that to 10 other people that turn it in and they have a little bit of something. You know, there's all kinds of ways to get experience. Like one, and I tell this in my class all the time. Are you a firewall engineer? No. Should you be familiar with firewalls? Can you go get certs on firewalls if you're interested in that kind of thing? Yes, absolutely. You can go and find these certs and this experience, because now I can say, when they ask a question about firewalls, you don't go, oh, I don't know anything about firewalls. And then you get a 0 points when they're asking that question. But if you go look it up, and I tell people, start easy and simple. Your system right now in front of you has a firewall on it. If you have a Microsoft system, an Apple Macintosh, or some system like that, it already has a firewall on it. Don't mess with those firewall settings. Online, look at YouTube, look at some books, and see how it's done before you mess around, because you can accidentally mess up your computer, have to reboot it all and reload it because things in the firewalls and it's not working right. So get the experience. Have other people check your resume too. Another good one. There might be obvious things on there that I'd be like, no, I wouldn't interview that person. But the more people that can look at your resume, the better. I've done that many times with some of the students. Hey, can you look at this? And I'll look, and you might want to be careful about that. And so it's not, I know this isn't the best answer. It's not easy, but not all those jobs require that clearance and that U.S. citizenship. Hope that answered.
Thank you. No, it does. It does. So you're saying that there are good paying jobs, even if you are F1 status with work permit or STEM OPT, which is like 3 years, 1 + 2 years. So stay hopeful. There's a lot of jobs. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen. You don't have to work for the defense or contractors. There's a lot of private small companies, mid-sized companies that need to secure the data.
Absolutely. You saw the big number at the very beginning of the slides. There are tons and tons of jobs out there. Yes, a lot of them do require you to be a citizen for them, but then there's a bunch that don't. It's all about being persistent and looking hard, not maybe using just one search engine, use some other one. Find all the open jobs. There's a bunch of those programs that we all know about out there that you can go look at.
Thank you, Professor.
Other
Also, I have a
questions?
question. Yeah, I do. What are the paths or what are the steps do you have to follow to be a cybersecurity specialist?
What are the paths to be a cybersecurity specialist?
Yes, what are the requirements? What should I do as a beginner?
Okay. Um, Cybersecurity specialist. So
Yes.
that's a great way to get into cybersecurity. There's if you go look at some of the openings right now, look down the list of things that they want. They may want a cert. They may want some experience in a certain area. Go get that. There's so much resources online right now for you to be able to go do that. There are free certs that only take an hour or two that you can go find online. I've done that myself uh, many times. You can go to some of the government sites. They have those. They're free. You might click through some slides from, remember what they are. They might have a test at the end, but then when you're done, you've got your knowledge has increased because you were looking through at the beginning. So look for those and find out what they want. If it's health care, which healthcare industry pays well, the financial industry pays well. Those are two that are really good. Always going to be there. You know, they might cut jobs in other places. They're not going to cut usually in those two. And if you can get like I've seen a job out there. It was a cybersecurity job, but it was for a financial company. And I was like, oh, well, I don't have any experience in that financial system. But if I wanted to, I could go look online, look up the financial system company itself, find out more about that financial system. And then when I go to do an interview, if I get lucky and get the interview, it wouldn't be, I've never touched that system. I don't know anything about it. You know, right there, you get a 0 for that area. And after when they add all the points for your interview, if you've got zeros in a couple areas, guess what? You're going to be at the bottom probably, not even get that callback interview, and maybe and I've known several people that have done that. Other students, I've recommended that they go for cybersecurity entry jobs. Go find out what they want, and they don't hide it. They want this person that has this, and they'll tell you. It's in the job application usually. Go look at a bunch of those type of jobs because cybersecurity has so many flavors to it that you need to pick what you want and then go find out what the bare minimum is and find that. And there's so many ways to get it. You know, you're doing this through education institution, like a great one like IGU. You might go study on your own, self-study for different things, and then it goes on your resume. They see it on your resume. Oh, they didn't work in this job for 5 years, but they've got experience by what they're showing on their resume. And you can talk about it. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, sir, that did, but I just wanted to know specifically that do I require any specific skills? Like, do you have to be based in the programming, or do you have to be the best in the networking sectors, or do you have to be based in any particular sector, or do I need any certification for that? I just wanted to, I'm a BSIT student, so what would be the best way to learn the cybersecurity, or what would be the best way to be the best in this field?
So there's kind of two answers there. Um, the first part you were talking about databases and maybe the languages out there, learning those. What are the best ones? You can find those online very easily. But you know, JavaScript and all these other little languages out there that they may put must have Java experience, right? Well, how did you get it? You can get those through school. You can get them through self-study, and then you can get them. You can get certs so that you're not just saying, "Oh, I know a lot about JavaScript," because they're more likely they're going to ask you a detailed question on that. And what was the second part? That was the first part you were asking about those kind of database and language experience that that is easy to go out there and get. There's very cheap, and then there's even free courses out there that you can go find those, and institutions that do it too. Second part. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it's good. Thank you.
Other questions?
Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon.
So I have a question really that focuses on attacks during when there is a cyber attack on a company, let's say a hypothetical company, ABC. So you find that most Homeland Security agencies, like FBI, in our case in the United States, forbid ransom payment in the event of that kind of cyber terrorism. But do you think it is pragmatic not to pay ransoms? Because if you do, you talked about serious hackers like DarkSide, like those people will just leak data, and probably when you do not pay them, you endanger the profitability of your company, you lose customers or something. Do you think it is pragmatic not to pay ransoms?
That's a great question, and it's a very hard one. And companies struggle with this. Me, just on the surface, I wouldn't want to pay them. Yeah, they can do bad things with your data, and there are requirements, especially for government agencies. You have to report it. So it's going to be reported anyways. It's going to be in the news. So and so got hacked. Happens all the time. People recover from it. Agencies and companies recover from it. I wouldn't want to pay them and give them money. Me, I wouldn't want that. It's a company decision. I would hope that they wouldn't pay it, because that just encourages it to happen more, right? And hopefully they'll beef up their security. Hopefully they'll find some good security professionals to not let that happen in the future. There's things that can be done. You can, and then I already mentioned the backup part, quickly recovering, but it's a very hard, and it's a personal, and it's a company. I lean on the don't pay them. That's my philosophy on it. If more people do the paying, like I said, it'll never go away ever. And you might get hit with it again. You know, for whatever caused it to happen in the first place, it might happen again. So you're just going to be continually paying. Yes, it's really hard to recover from this. You got to reload your systems because they're locked. And only if you pay will you get that encryption password to unlock them. And by the way, they still have access to that data in a lot of cases. So once you're hacked, you're hacked. It happens. Boy, that's a hard question though. You know, pay some small amount or pay a lot to reboot, to reload everything. You know, you're going to bring other people in to help you. There's costs no matter what you do. And I just wouldn't want to encourage cyber criminals to do with it. So, hard question. Thank you. Other questions?